This is the origin video of hashtag Misled by MSM. In effect, it's a walkaway campaign. Yes, walk away from mainstream media. If you believe that the media is the source of many of our cultural and social problems these days, please consider making your own video that describes your experiences and aha moments that caused you to lose faith in them. Make sure you don't name any organizations or people by name, lest it gets you into legal trouble for defamation. My journey to no longer trusting the mainstream media as a source of information started in the late 90s. There was an earthquake somewhere, Haiti, Turkey, I can't remember where. But over the next several days, the media was reporting more and more earthquakes. It seemed to be that there was an earthquake outbreak. Maybe the earth was cracking into pieces. But every day that got more serious, closer to home, things like that. So I went to the U.S. Geological Survey's website and found a global listing of earthquakes. What did I find? I found that there's 10 to 15 earthquakes every day globally, and and that list was like that for months and years before. I didn't read them all, but it was scrolled back and like, oh, 10, 21, 6, 40, you know. And over time, it's pretty much normal to have 10 or 15 per day. Yet the media was giving people the sense that this was some kind of unusual occurrence or an outbreak was happening or something really bad, something that you should be concerned about and make sure you stay tuned in. Same thing happened with airplanes, small airplane crashes. Once again, there was a crash, and the next day, there was another crash, and the next day, another crash. It was like they were suggesting that there was a new problem here. Maybe it was bad fuel, terrorism, sabotage, who knows, but keep watching, keep coming back. The FAA website showed that there was, I don't know, 5 or so a day forever. It's not an unusual occurrence. One easy place to see this manipulation is in the list of perceived dangers to children versus actual dangers to children. A great book led me onto this idea. It's called 50 Dangerous Things You Should Let Your Children Do. And the author had a video. He talked about 5 of them, but the perceived dangers included things like terrorists, school shootings, drugs. I can't remember the 5, but those were on the list. And then the actual list was car accidents, homicide, abuse, drownings. Not one of the actuals was on the perceived, and not one of the perceived is on the actuals. So if you believe the perceived list, why is it that you're so far off from the truth? The answer is mainstream media. Here's another one. Dangers of guns, especially to children. A child is 40,000 times more likely to die from drowning than from being shot. Does the mainstream media report on the dangers of pools? Here's another one. If you watch the presidential debate between President Biden and President Trump, and you were shocked at how President Biden's mental state was, you can lay that shock at the feet of the mainstream media. They've been a proponent of his for a long time, and they've been hiding the truth. Alternative media, which we'll talk about later, was onto this for years before the debate. But the mainstream media did everything they can to hide the truth. Here's another one. The assassination attempt on a former president. That story, forgetting the personalities, that story is the biggest story since 9/11, 23 years ago. The biggest story. In the past, they would have giant headlines and full page pictures and special editions in the newspapers. But some mainstream media organizations reported this as he fell or popping noises were heard. You know, my first watch of the video was he didn't fall. He dropped to the ground. It wasn't a trip and a fall, which is kind of got a slight negative connotation of incompetence or something. He dove to the floor, but they called it he fell or he was hurried off the stage. Why would they do that? Well, they don't want to feel like they're saying anything positive about ex-President Trump. So they had to make up stuff. And my point isn't whether they like him or not. My point is they're not telling the truth on what's happening. So why are the mainstream media, and this is globally, why are they doing this? I think I have a good reason. I think I was born in the New York City area and raised watching 5 broadcast television channels. And over the years, late 70s, cable TV came out, and there was 8 times as many channels. So mainstream media got diluted quite a bit from a viewership perspective. Then, 40, that's 40 channels. 40 went to 100 by maybe the end of the decade. And then satellite TV came out that added a couple hundred. And then the internet came out, and now we're at, tens or hundreds of millions of channels. So they went from 5 to, let's say, 50 million channels. They've lost an incredible amount of their audience. Imagine you're in a business and you've lost 99 or more percent of your customers. What would you do? Would you just keep reporting the facts as they happen, the full facts, or would you sensationalize things to get people to return and consume your content again? Like the airplane crashes and earthquakes. There's nothing new there, right? And by the way, news has the word new in it, right? That's not news if it's the same thing every day, unless, some famous person is in the plane crash or the earthquake destroyed an ancient building or something interesting. But no, they would manufacture it. They're trying to get customers, or not customers, viewers. They need to get viewers. So why do they need viewers? Well, here's the key realization that I had 20 years ago. The media is not in the information business. I'm not being facetious here. I literally mean this. They do not really sell their information. The business they're in is the advertising business. They provide viewers of their customers, advertisers are their customers. They provide viewers to their advertisers. So if you're constantly losing viewers, how do you get more viewers? Well, you sensationalize and you exaggerate and you omit things when it chases people away, and you exaggerate things or produce more of it when it's working, right? They're measuring metrics to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Advertisers, the media's real customers, not you. You are not the media's customer. You're the consumer of their content. Their customer is the advertisers. Advertisers pay for eyeballs. It's been going on forever. In newspapers, it was how many people read their newspaper, how many subscriptions they have. Magazines, same thing. Magazines still do it. And as a matter of fact, ask your doctor if they pay for their magazine subscriptions. They don't generally, because the magazine companies give them out for free because they know that 100 people will read each magazine in each doctor's office, otherwise known as boosting their viewership, right? But you are not the media's customer. Advertisers are the media's customer. Advertisers pay by the number of people that see ads, whether it's a website, a pay-per-click, a newspaper, pretty much social media. It's all the same now. The digital ones tend to pay per the number of people that see the ad, pay per thousand, or the number of people that click on the ad, that's pay per click, right? So it's all about viewership. You want to boost your income, boost your viewership. So if you're a media organization, how do you get people to return watching your content? Well, you sensationalize, you clip, you spin, you omit stories that might chase them away, right? And they're measuring all of this stuff. They put an article out and the next day they have 10% less viewers. They'll do less of that. And if they get 10% more viewers, they'll do more of it. They don't really care about the truth. They care about increasing viewers, and they'll do whatever they have to. They'll lie, spin, cheat, or anything else just to get you to come back the next day and see that real thing. It reminds me a lot of drug dealers who don't care what happens to their customers. They just want them to buy again. And casinos are the same, right? They don't care what happens to you. You ruin your life as long as you come in and give us our cut. We don't care. Journalists, the word journal means to record what happened. But today, journalism is gone. They're not reporting what happened. They're spinning, sensationalizing, omitting, trying to optimize their audience, and they don't care whether they're reporting the truth or not. They're telling you what you want to hear. If you believe certain things about the world or person or anything else, and they've decided that you're part of their audience, they will tell you more of that to make you happy and satisfied and all that stuff. But once again, not to be nice, but to get you to watch their ads. Journalists have become advocates of political parties now, not journalists. Remember, to journal means to record what happened. Plain and simple, they're using your emotions against you to boost their income. They don't care what happens to you, your mental state, your physical state, your family, your community. They don't really care about that as long as you keep viewing their ads so that they can get that money from the advertisers. They cannot be trusted anymore. The big names cannot be trusted as a source of information. It's a source of information you want to hear. In effect, and this is a little harsh, but in effect, the viewers are in control of the content. They've picked an audience, they craft their stories around that audience to make them happy so that they keep coming back. Now, if you're running a large organization, in this case a country, do you want the critical decisions to be determined by the truth? Or do you want it to be determined by what's popular and common and interesting? Special interests control the media to a large extent. The media themselves are one of them. Political parties, billionaires, pressure groups, all kinds of organizations are constantly twisting the arm of mainstream media to say more of this and less of that, right? But if you have a large organization, let's say a country, and you want to make the right decisions for the country, you need to have great information in order to do that, not spun information and diminished truth. Okay, so that's the variety of problems. Mainstream media is not interested in reporting the truth. They're interested in maximizing their income, and whatever happens to the truth happens to the truth. So what's the solution to this problem? The solution is to walk away from mainstream media. It might be good for a story about a cat competition in the park down the block, but many of the important things are being spun and sensationalized so that you return and watch more. Instead, start to look for and cull and small independent sources of media. Now look, mainstream media generates an impression of authenticity and of trustworthiness, and they do this with great intros and outros, theme music, great looking people, wonderful sets, great voices, great graphics. They have the money, they spend it, and they give you a sense of authority and trust. But in fact, that's what used car salesmen do too. They clean their place, they wear good clothes, they do all of the superficial things that makes you feel like you can trust them. And, at least reputationally in the past, we know what happens when you're dealing with someone like that. So find independent sources of information, not the big ones. And look, they're not going to be as good looking, and maybe they don't speak as well or something else, but they're going to give you closer to the truth, much closer to the truth than mainstream media. And look, you can, because there's millions now, you can bring up 3 or 4 of them and compare what the stories are and find the discrepancies. You can smell out the truth. Another thing you should do is watch, and when you Google or whatever for video, for instance, look for the full video, not the edited video, right? Because they will cut and omit stuff like crazy. And it's going to get even worse now with AI. With AI, this stuff can be created, right? It's not just chopping some words off of the beginning of a sentence or the end of the sentence. Now you can make a video of the person saying something that they never said. So what you need to do for that is you need to use your own eyeballs right? You need to see the person talking, or you need to go to an event and see how big it was or what happened, or ask some people. Also, friends and people who you can highly trust that are objective, second-hand sources, but not third-hand sources. Third-hand sources just won't cut it in this crazy, crazy era we're in now. Another thing that I've been doing for years is personalizing things. So what do I mean by that? Well, if there's a story somewhere about, some disease, blah blah blah, ask your people. Do you know anyone with this disease? Have you ever heard of anyone with this disease? This disease. If you know a nurse, ask the nurse. Have you ever treated someone in the hospital with this disease? You personalize it as much as you can. Here's an example. Murder. How many people in your life do you personally know? And I don't mean your cousin's friend. I mean you knew this person, you sat and had a meal with them, or something like that, who were murdered. It's very rare. It's very rare to know someone who was murdered. In my life, I've known one person who was murdered. I know of other people who were murdered, but I didn't know them. It's pretty rare. Compare that to, say, cancer. Who has cancer? How many people in your life have cancer? Right? Everybody. How about car accidents? Everybody. Right? So the media will often, the mainstream media will often give you an exaggerated sense of something that's true, but when you compare it to your own life, it's not true. Let's face it, one of the media's techniques is to sell fear. There's airplane crashes and earthquakes and fires and Nazis taking over and existential climate change, and everything is sensationalized and hyped, and they're all based on fear. Don't let fear manipulate you. It is the biggest motivator. Ask yourself, how many people do I know did this or had this happen to them or saw, and get a sense of proportion. Don't trust the media's reporting and using their tone of voice and their body language as an indication of legitimacy. So this could go on for a long time, and that's where I need your help. If you have experiences like this and you want to add to my playlist, go ahead and make a video. Be specific about what happened, what you saw. The more specific, the more credible it is, right? And post a comment here, and I will review it and add it to my playlist, and we'll start effectively a walkaway campaign for not trusting the mainstream media anymore. Hashtag misled by MSM. Let's make this happen. The media is not serving us. They're actually hurting us. They're a big cause of many of our problems, and they need to be put in their place. Good day and positive thoughts.